over. I'm really excited to actually talk about our experience. I feel like I could talk forever about this experience because I learned loads from it. That was intentionally the point, actually, in the way that we worked with Malcolm, that the learning we would get in-house. And I haven't got forever. I've got about 15-20 minutes, so I should get on with it. But yeah, I absolutely loved working with Malcolm and the team. I just thought I'd kind of set the scene as to what we were after when we were recruiting, because all of us will be different in our needs. And actually, I think that was the thing with working with ATRD. I think they were kind of flexible in the way that they worked with our needs as well. But we were looking for around 2 or 3 new trustees. We were particularly, our board actually had a lot of diversity, but it was considerably lacking in racial diversity. And I looked at the previous recruitment that we had carried out pretty much about 3 years ago, and that was the process was lazy, fairly automatic to what we had done previously. And I can say that because actually that was a process that I was part of, and I feel like, right, that was something that we have to change if we're going to have change in this organisation, and we're passionate about that. That's a big piece that I think I wanted to share, that we were really planned before we started this process with Malcolm and ATRD's help, that we looked very far ahead in terms of succession for trustees and who was leaving when, what skills were dropping out when, and we had done a full skills and diversity audit to see that through. And I think that's a critical point for us, that in order to do this well, this process, we needed to give ourselves the time, and for anyone coming in to give the time for them to learn and understand their role as a trustee alongside others that might have been trustees for a while. And so that was really important to us, and I think it really helped in our process, that we could see we had a long time ahead of us before trustees started to drop out. Actually, the first trustees were leaving within a year of us starting this process. And in particular, I wanted to learn more in-house, as I'd said, about improving our recruitment process. And that wasn't just around, I thought we could learn a lot from the trustee process, recruitment process, but I also thought we could learn a lot for our staff recruitment process through this as well. So I really didn't want to push this out to I'm sure they'd have done an excellent job, but to an agency that would have just led this for us, and we'd have said, there you go, that's what we need, see you later, and come back to us. I really wanted to take this learning in-house. So that's what I put to Malcolm. And actually what we agreed as a way of working was, and I wanted to really lead this within the organisation. We're quite small at Buttle. We're 20 people. We support children and young people across the UK. And so, I felt like this needed CEO leadership and learning for sure as well. And Malcolm, we agreed, would essentially be a critical friend of the process that we were running through, right from the very beginning of it all the way through to the end. In the interviews in particular, Malcolm also was to join the interviews as an observer, and as a critical friend, I think, actually, Malcolm, to the trustees and me as well. And I'll kind of quickly highlight a bit of what that kind of critical friendship looked like. So right from the start, actually, even though we had kind of said, right, we need a lot of time, and we're really planned on this and succession planning, etc., I then kind of shared the timeline with Malcolm and said, oh, this is what it looks like. And he just said, no, it's really short. It was about 3 months, and I let my own desire for action and getting on with the job really quickly. Let's do this, and really impress the trustees and everything with how quickly we can do it, take over from actually what really needed to be done, which was thinking this through, putting it out there and giving people time, and most importantly, getting this opportunity out to the right communities. And actually, we doubled that 3 months to 6 months. And I'm really, really glad that we did do that. Malcolm, in terms of being a critical friend as well, really helped around an inclusive trustee recruitment pack that we created. I had seen some really good examples of that through other organisations, had used some of that those examples as well, and created this pack. But it was brilliant to have Malcolm work alongside me and just kind of challenge on, could you be more supportive to any candidates coming in here? I'm not going to go into loads of detail on that pack, but Malcolm, if people that are on here would like me to share that pack with them, I'm happy. If I can send it to you and we can share it with everyone too. I hope you think it's, like it can always be better, but I hope it's a good start for people looking for an inclusive trustee recruitment pack. A critical element, obviously, what's just been spoken about, is the Bano database. For us, as I've said, it was about in the past, where I say that we've been lazy, it was just flicking that automatic switch of, we've got to do something, we've got to do it quickly, and so we'll just do what we've always done before. And of course, you'll end up with the same results, and we didn't want the same results of what we'd done before. So how do we reach the communities that we support as an organisation to with this opportunity to be a trustee? Actually, Buttle, we've got many ways of doing that. Actually, we have a network of 600 frontline organisations that support children and young people that we could market to with that opportunity. So that was fantastic for us. And if you've got that same opportunity, then great. Not everyone has that. I was particularly interested in the Bano database and working with that. And you heard that there's kind of 500 contacts on there. And of course, you're not going to go out to all these 500. And Malcolm's very supportive in helping us kind of go, look, really get that down to what are you looking for? We were looking for frontline or lived experience of the issues that children and young people face in poverty. We'd also were looking, one of our things was around technology and using technology within our workplace to reach children and young people in a better way. So actually I started to bring this down to children and young people led organisations, and then some with a tech focus as well. And I brought that down to around, I think it was about 25 organisations in the end. Messaged out to 25, talking about the opportunity, but very top line. And Malcolm really helped to link in with named people as well. Some of those responded pretty quickly. Some of those didn't respond at all. Absolutely fine. These organisations are incredibly busy, and we got that. But the offer actually was also not to say, look, actually, can you just share this opportunity? It was actually to talk to people and say, this is the opportunity. If you have any way of getting this out there, that's paid, of course, as well. I'm not asking people to do this for free. I absolutely understand that there is a cost to this. And actually, if I'm paying for other opportunities, and we did a lot of the other opportunity stuff you'd normally do as well, but if I'm paying them for that, of course I should be paying these organisations too. Some of them absolutely just ran them through their channels and were like, no, that's cool. And others were saying, yeah, there is a cost to this, and I'll send that through to you. And we joined that as well. So with the Bano database, we had those 25. I think I had about 10 or 11, 12 conversations with people. And then there was this kind of distribution of the opportunity to those they worked with, to their kind of networks, etc. And by the end of this, I thought I'd say this now. I think we got, in terms of our applications, around 6 or 7 through the Bano organisations that we approached. we got 38 applications overall for our trustee through the process. And just to say on that, I was really, really chuffed with the diversity of the long list, and actually not just the full diversity of it. The level of applications was just absolutely awesome. I mean, there weren't any that were just throwing something in for a bit of interest. These were people that were absolutely engaged fully in what Buttle's all about, which I was loving. There were those other organisations that we used. Won't go into them in great detail. I think there were more than we would have just pressed in that kind of automatic mode that I talked about. That we can, when time is the limit, we can just go to. But there were some great organisations we also pushed out. So Reach, Getting on Board, Akivo, and then actually there were the automatic ones, but they still did actually come through with a real range of strong applications from a diverse audience. And I'd say the automatics are a bit of the Guardian, charity jobs, etc. So I think as part of the process, we also offered a webinar. So in the trustee recruitment form application pack and in the booklet we created, we offered this webinar. And I think that was a really good thing to offer. We didn't actually follow through with it in the end. We got about 10 people engaged. And I ended up giving 15 to 20 minutes of my time to just talk through anyone that was interested in asking any questions. I could talk about Buttle a little bit as well. And I'll come back to that in some terms of things that I learned from this process. Just other quick things that Malcolm helped with. He really helped around the thinking for scoring for the shortlisting and putting weighting on specific things that we were scoring, and just some of the thinking around that. Also, some of the anonymisation what level of anonymisation. I was really taxing my brain on how much anonymisation, what's right. And Malcolm really, really helped my thinking on that as well. And also what kinds of questions that we should ask our trustee candidates as well. Again, I kind of got quite a range of questions, but I shared those with Malcolm and his thoughts and just support on all of this, just having someone that could really help my thinking. I've done a lot of work on it, but that could help my thinking was just incredibly helpful. And then I said before that Malcolm joined us on the day when we interviewed. And I having been through that, it was so helpful. And I've said to Malcolm just how helpful this was. Having someone externally, but also that the board had known that I was working on throughout this process, come into that. Alongside, we used our governance committee that was about 3 or 4 trustees. Malcolm introduced himself at the start of each of those interviews, but then would turn off his camera. He was very much observing, but at the end, when we were talking about all of the candidates, having Malcolm there and talking through the candidates with us, what each candidate brought, and let me just say that shortlist for the interviews was, I think it was 6 people, and it wasn't all people of colour. It was a diverse range, and I'll come back to that as well. So to think that through and help our trustees think through what is it that each candidate, what strengths are they going to bring us, what difference in terms of opinion, perspective, etc. It was incredibly useful having Malcolm there to really highlight that back to us as well. There were a few things. Once we had actually recruited, and as I said, we recruited actually 3 trustees through this process. We boosted the amount of trustees we have on our board to actually, because we knew there were a fair few dropping out over the next 18 months, but to enable us to have a more diverse board as well. So we actually offered a buddying system for trustees coming in. So for those trustees that have been with us for kind of 4 or 5 years and will be leaving in the next 18 months, for them to kind of say, look, I've been here, I can support you. I can really work through what I've been doing. Over the course of a year, the buddy system will work. And all 3 new trustees have been buddied up. We actually recruited, of those 3, 2 people of colour, and both of those had never been trustees before. And something that we've offered in support of, and actually any trustee that hasn't had experience of being a trustee before, we have paid for them to have coaching support from 2027. It's a 2-year program, an incredible program, offering support to them, but also I think it will offer some support to me and my chair around how we build inclusivity within our board, and how we can change things, because we're not just done. Now the tough part is making sure that we're an inclusive organisation. So we're offering support in that way as well. There was a lot in our process. I think that it wasn't perfect, and there's a lot that we can learn from that. I think one of the biggest thing for me, and it was a real dilemma all the way through this, and I kind of put it almost out to you to say, what do you think is the right way to go here? But I said right at the beginning, we set out to recruit for a diverse for a diverse long list. We were really keen that the long list was extremely diverse, and we were successful in that. We actually didn't, with trustees, I didn't set out to only recruit for racial diversity and to bring in trustees that hadn't ever been a trustee before, potentially. And I think that is something that I still ponder over, and it's something that I spoke to Malcolm about afterwards as well, because this is why it was so critical, I think, that Malcolm supported me in the room. We've done a lot of work here to create this diverse long list. And I woke up on the morning of the interviews actually really kind of worried that work, what was that going to bring us in the end anyway? And as you know, we recruited and increased the diversity, the racial diversity on our board. But I feel like we could have gone another way, and it could have been to just say, no, we are going to recruit for racial diversity alone on this board. And if anyone engages in this that cannot help us to do that, we will be really clear and say no. Our board was not in that place at that time. And I think the process we've been on means that didn't matter so much. And I think the board would be in a different place going forwards. And I wanted to share that with you. It was really difficult. And this isn't an easy thing, that we're all going through with our boards. And I absolutely get that. It was not easy. But I think I'm really chuffed with the new trustees that we have and the difference that they have brought. Just one more a couple of things on the learning. Malcolm's advice was about that webinar, and I felt like we hadn't got enough people for that to be worthwhile time-wise. I was wrong. I actually think we could have done that webinar. It was really, really helpful. So once again, Malcolm, you were right, and I was wrong on that. And I think actually in our interview panel, in all of our staff interviewing now, recruitment, we have a young person on the panel, and we didn't have that. We weren't in the place to have that, actually. I don't think supporting that young person in the right way to do that for trustees. I think we would do that in the next part of the process. I think that would be amazing and would really help out some of our thinking, potentially as Malcolm's views helped us too in that. So, you know, I kind of end on sharing. I think ATRD, and I'm sorry to speak for you on this, Malcolm, but I think there is a real flexibility to the offer in terms of support, and that flexibility really helped me, and for us to keep the learning in-house, because I do think this is something that I absolutely valued going through myself, and there's something I think for all of you in how ATRD can support, and particularly, you know, through the guide, through the ATRD Bano database, there's some really incredible stuff on offer there, and we will be using those in our next recruitment round. There's no doubt of that, but that's probably for us not going to be for about another 15 months, I think. Over to you, Malcolm.
Well, Joe, thanks for generously giving your time to share your learning, and because there's so much in there, and I have to applaud the commitment that you show to the process, but you personally, which is so important. And I think the way you engage your board, because often CEOs have a vision idea and the board's not there, or vice versa. And actually, and in this case, yeah, there was a joint understanding and awareness. And I first really enjoyed working with you on the process, because I could see how passionate you were personally about it. And I think you probably underplayed the amount of time that you spent on it, because it's not a quick fix. And over that 6-month period, you put a lot of time and energy into it. So anybody else who's doing this has to be aware that it takes that to do it properly. It's also a process. So Joe mentioned our database, and as Subeda said, it's something that you can do yourselves. So we've got 500 names on it, but actually there are thousands more from your own areas, from your own network, that you could yourself add and start to develop that pipeline for yourselves when you recruit, not this time after that. So I won't say much more than that. I will just again thank Joe again, and I'm sure we're going to stay in touch. And really ask whether anyone's got anything they'd like to ask Joe about the work that he did, the process, or to ask us about the database, about our work, and how we can help and support you. So I'm going to throw it open now to any questions. So if people can just, Cassandra's got a hand raised. So Cassandra, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Malcolm, Subeda, and Joe. That's been really helpful. And yeah, a lot of the kind of resonates as we've been like thinking about this challenge ourselves. So my question was, how much kind of understanding, and I think you touched on this a little bit, Malcolm, but how much understanding and training and knowledge about kind of racism and anti-oppressive work and anti-racist practice was there, or had you done with your existing trustees before kind of going into this process?
Good question. Yeah, and we had done some. So with my share over the last 2 years, we've kind of been on the journey together, essentially on an immense amount of training, particularly on anti-racism. So I have felt that the most important thing is for the two of us to learn together, challenge each other together, and that has been incredibly helpful. With the board, we've not done lots and lots of training, but we've given a good couple of sessions, and in an away day we devoted some good time to this as well. I have to give a big shout to Getting On Board, because their training, which was I think a couple of hours in a board meeting, which had all of our board members there, was incredible. It was really good. It was really good, and really got some open discussion, because that's what we wanted, open discussion with our board members. And for people, you know, actually for current board members to say, do you know what, when I joined as well, I didn't know if this is the right place for me, and we do need to consider, you know, the inclusiveness of this organisation, trustee-wise. And actually, they started to own that a lot more through that open conversation that was built up. So, you know, training, yes, but I think it was about those more open conversations too. But that is also where I say, Cassandra, that I still didn't get it to that point where it was like we're only going to focus on the appointments we make will increase our racial diversity. It was more on, no, if we absolutely nail getting this out to the communities that we support, that will come through this process anyway. And I actually believed that too. There was a lot of pressure on me for that, that's for sure. But I believed that that was the case. But I don't know where I am with that still. It worked this time around. I think it might be different. I would go a different way the next time.
Yeah, thank you. Because my response, Cassandra, would be, it is about people staying with the organisation. So if that infrastructure is not there, and I think Joe's highlighted several things that they're doing with budding and 2027 to build that support for new and first-time trustees. So that's very important. And it is a long journey for a lot of boards who aren't there yet. So yeah, again, unless they're doing something already to make sure people stay, then actually they shouldn't start recruiting trustees on that basis. And shout out, I mean, Joe mentioned getting on board, who Penny is on the call and done a brilliant job working with us. And she and I share contacts and partners. And again, a big shout out to getting on board for the brilliant work that they're doing around diversity as well. So Penny, if you can hear that. There's a hand from there's a hand from Kate.
Hi, thank you, Joseph and Malcolm, for sharing. I think it's really interesting, and this work is really necessary. My question, I guess, is about language. I see that Beno, as you specifically highlighted, Black and Asian network organisations. I'm personally Egyptian and consider myself to be Arab or North African. You've also missed out Roma, Gypsy and Irish traveller in that. And I just wondered, why have you decided to do that, and whether you're not working with Arabs and travellers? And obviously I'm based in Yorkshire, where travellers make up our greatest ethnic minority. So I wonder if that's just something on language, or whether you're specifically highlighting Black and Asian only. And I know that we're at risk at perpetuating this idea of white and other by grouping everyone together by using terms like BAME again and again. But yeah, I just wanted to understand that a bit more. Thank you. Yeah,
no, thanks, Kate. It's a good question. Not the first time I've been asked, I have to say. Nothing perfect. You can't do everything. So I think that's my starting point. And I think, yeah, my background is Black. When I've been on boards, I've largely been the only Black person on their boards. And so when I started this, I had to start somewhere. So I started with Black and Asian, because the majority, you know, to talk about numbers, people who are not on trustee boards are from Black and Asian communities in terms of representation. So that's where I started it. But I think the lessons, stuff we're doing, it can be shared not just across other ethnicities, but also around other characteristics. So, and I certainly wouldn't, our social media network, I think it's more wide ranging than just the Black and Asian. So as far as I'm concerned, yeah, it's not exclusive. It's just the term that I'm using for now, and rather than overcomplicating it. So I hope that gives you an answer to that.
Thanks.
Any other waves? I'm looking around. I'm going to ask the question that's answered the term, Jessica. Would you like to ask your question as you're here?
Well, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi, so I'm Jess. I work at Cardboard Citizens. We're just about to start the process of building our recruitment package for the new board of trustees that we're going for. I had a question. Being sent over the database from our chair, and it was the version from January. I just wondered whether is there a sort of live version of that document, or how the process works.
Yeah, great. So the question's really about the database and about our updating of it, and then how often we send our updates to existing clients, and then whether we charge for those updates.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Cool. And we haven't really thought through that, just to be honest. At the moment, we sent out to people who've asked us for it, and we're happy to send out repeats so far without additional fee to people who've come to us. We've capped it so far at 500, because actually it's pretty daunting, as Joe was saying, to pick out and identify 10, 20, 30 that will best meet your needs. So we don't want to be overwhelming. On the other hand, particularly for small charities, on the other hand, we're looking at it now to try and improve the way it looks and the way people can use it, perhaps breaking it down into sectors, into people that we know will be more responsive. I mean, Joe mentioned that there are some are just names on a list which we've got no contact with. So it can be a bit hit and miss, but you could be looking for a treasurer, and there may not be many finance organizations on it, but you might go to a sports network where there may be lots of treasurers on the sports network. So it's quite difficult to navigate, but again, we're happy to have a conversation with people about that. At the moment, I guess, once we start to expand the list again, which I think we will do, to identify gaps, we would think about a pricing strategy for that. And it may be something like, if we add another 50 organizations, we might charge people perhaps half the price again, or something like that. At the moment, we're not doing that, but I think it is something that I think that we should be considering. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Jess?
That's lovely. Thank you, Malcolm.
Cool. Okay. Any more hands? Caroline. Hi.
Hi there. I've got a couple of quite prosaic questions. One is, what do you qualify as a small organisation, and what qualifies as a large organisation? And secondly, I'm assuming, given that you don't have a personal connection to everybody on the list, that they're aware they're on the list? That they've either given you explicit or some sort of implicit permission to share their data? Sorry, boring, but helpful.
No, it's a good question. I think the question about small and large is not necessarily for us to determine that. I think people tell us if they're small or large, and the Charity Commission has got information on what they think is a small organisation. And we're not here to make money. So if someone says they're small and they're large, I'm not unduly bothered, but I would know, and vice versa. No, the list is drawn from the internet. So it's a search. We've gone online, we found organizations, and they're largely, a lot of them are information points, a lot of them are contact forms, a lot of them are inquiry points. So they're largely not named people. So we haven't got the resources to actually develop a relationship with them. So we have emailed all of them at some stage to say, we've got this list which we've drawn up, you're on it, would you like to subscribe? And probably about 1 in 5 have come back so far. And as the beta says, we're looking to progress that work as time goes on. So hopefully more will subscribe. But as Joe was saying, some of them are only on Facebook or Instagram, are volunteer-led, only operate once a month. So there are limits to how far you can actually engage directly with them, but we can only try. So there is that. And we are looking at GDPR issues as well, and we're working with somebody who's advising us on that. But yeah, and we're looking at name contacts, so that, again, with Joe, when Joe wrote out to people, he and I sat down and I gave them name contacts that I was aware of for some of the organizations. So we'd like to build that up, but obviously with 500, there are limits to what we can do. So it's a long answer, but I hope that gives you a flavor of what we're about. Yeah. Cool. What is the Story Museum anyway? I'm quite interested.
We're a rather magical place in Oxford, where we collect and share stories, especially for children, but for people of all ages. Come and visit anytime.
Yeah, no, I'd love to know. That sounds brilliant. It's done. I'm reading a book called The Keeper of Stories as we speak. So that's interesting. There's a Jane.
Thanks, Malcolm. We are in the process of interviewing 2 trustees to join our 11-person board, both of whom are, one is Black and one is Asian. And through this recruitment process, that isn't what we expected. We're completely delighted because our next round of recruitment was going to be, the board has gone through a process of identifying that, as Joseph said, the board is diverse, but not in terms of racial diversity. We have had a previous trustee, very successful trustee who worked with us, who was Black, but it hadn't occurred to me, I'm ashamed to say, that we might need to do some preparatory work in order to get the board in a place where they were appropriately, I don't know what the right language is.
I know what you mean.
So, yes, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. And are there, who can we reach out to? And, you know, because I wonder if our board needs that, but I'm probably not the best person to establish if that's the case.
Yeah, no, Phil, thanks for sharing that openly, Jane. I'm going to ask Penny if Penny's still on, or is she gone?
Still here.
Yeah, but Penny, I'm going to see whether you'd like to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Jane, what tends to happen is that when we're recruiting new trustees, particularly if they're different to the ones we've already got, we tend to land all the burden on them, don't we? So, you know, it's up to the new trustee to get inducted. It's up to the new trustee to learn. It's up to the new trustee to learn how we already do things and to fit in with our existing culture. So I think it would be a surprising board that didn't have some work to do. And I think the best kind of work is what Joe has described, where actually it just gets the board talking and thinking. It's helpful to have some external input because it's one step removed. You know, it helps us to think those things through. And I also think that often the things that we come up with in order to be more inclusive are brilliant for all of our trustees. You know, let's stop talking in acronyms. Let's stop reminding ourselves of all the things we've got in common, which actually bring some of us together, but exclude anybody else. Let's stop talking in shared histories. Let's make sure we get some training. Let's make sure we know what our responsibilities are. I mean, that's just some of the things that we might choose to do. And that's going to be good for any trustee, including any new trustee.
So, Penny, can I reach out to you?
With pleasure, but please reach out to Malcolm first, because
I'm entirely happy that, Jane, that you reach out to Penny. I had my complete permission.
Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Penny.
Brilliant. And any other things that either Joe or I have raised which people would like to ask? We've got 4 minutes, so yeah, I'm sure there are issues that I'm looking at. I should start the count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In that case, I'm going to thank my team for presenting it. Thank Joe for coming back to us and sharing his experiences and knowledge, and absolutely brilliant, Joe. So thank you so much for that. And everybody else for attending and for getting a bit more understanding about what we do and the challenges of recruiting more at least racially diverse boards and other boards. And again, feel free to stay in touch. and drop us an email if you want to go onto our supporter list or our client list, and we can keep you updated in terms of what we're doing. So on that note, I shall thank you all, and thank Penny for interventions, and hopefully see you all soon. So enjoy the sunshine.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Welcome. Thanks, Abeda. Thanks, Amy.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye, Joseph. Bye, everyone. Thank you for attending.
Great, thanks, Abeda.
No worries. Bye-bye, Malcolm. Bye.
Yeah, that was excellent timing.
Thank
and,
you.
and well done for your presentation.
Thank you. Worked out well. So I'm glad that everyone attended.
It was great. So you'll be doing lots more as we go forward.
Thank you. Yeah, build on my public speaking skills.
Okay, take care. I'll see you soon. Yeah.
Yeah. Bye-bye, Malcolm.
Bye.